and welcome back to my channel. So as you can see from the title of this video, I'm going to be doing my mental health story, and I know I did already post this video on my channel a while ago, but I'm really not happy with the video, so that's why I want to refilm it for you guys, because I'm just not happy with it. Just want to make sure in the flip screen that you can actually see me. Yes, you can. I literally started to film this video and then I realised I've been looking at the flip screen throughout the whole 10 minutes so far. So that's why I have to refilm it and make sure I'm looking in the lens. Do you know what? Having a flip screen is so off-putting because you can just see yourself in the corner whilst you're filming. It's cool, but obviously you've got to look at the lens and not the flip screen because, yeah. So let's get on with the video. So my mental health started to get worse, or I don't really want to say worse, but like when I first started to struggle with my mental health, it was in year 10 and 11 at school. So this was when I was aged 15 or 16, I would say. And like I did get bullied quite a bit in school. And there was a time at school when I got really bullied, and then my parents had to involve the police because it was getting quite bad and it was getting quite serious. And that resulted in me wanting to self-harm. Well, not wanting to self-harm because obviously no one wants to self-harm, and then it resulted in me self-harming. But back then I don't want to say this, but my self-harm was quite superficial, but any self-harm is very bad and very valid, and it's really serious. So yeah, I started to self-harm, and then some of my teachers found out, and then they referred me to the school counsellor, and then I was seeing the school counsellor like every week or something like that. I can't really remember. But yeah, and I used to get quite anxious at school as well. Like in my classes, I used to get quite anxious about reading out loud in front of my classmates. But yeah, my mental health wasn't really bad in school, if I'm being completely honest. Like yeah, I started to like self-harm. Like that was the first time I ever self-harmed. But it wasn't major because it wasn't consistent, if that makes sense. And then before I went to college, I was getting very anxious because I think it was like the anxiety of starting college, but I didn't realise I had anxiety back then. So then my mum took me to the nurse, and then I went to the nurse, and I said to her that I can't swallow, and she then said to me that, do you think it's anxiety? Because obviously like when you're anxious, like you feel like you've got a lump in your throat, and yeah, that's probably what it was. And then she said that I had anxiety. And then I started my first year at college, and this was at the end of 2014. And then we move on to early 2015. So I was about, how old was I? I was 16. Yeah, I was 16. And that was when it got quite serious with my mental health, because in early 2015 I made my first attempt to end my life, and my thoughts were like just very, very dark before that, and I think everything was just getting to me, like what happened at school, and I think everything was just getting so overwhelming for me. And I made my first attempt to end my life. I'm not going to say what I did and how I did it because that's just not helpful, and I just don't think that's important because that's just not helpful, because I don't want to give people ideas of what to do, because I know some people are very vulnerable who may watch this. And by the way, I did this in the college because the attempt I was going to do, well, the method I was using, I wanted to do it at home, but because like my family were at home, I didn't want them to see what I was doing, and I didn't want to get caught. So I did it in the college toilets so I wouldn't get caught, and then like my tutor found out, and I've always struggled with attachment issues since I was very little, and I was attached to my tutor at college, and she was a very big help to me at the time. And so she found out what happened, and then they had to call an ambulance for me whilst I was in college, and then I was taken to a hospital. I saw the mental health liaison team, and they referred me to CAMS, and CAMS is Children and Adult Mental Health Services, well, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. And I wasn't allowed back at college until I saw CAMHS, because obviously the college deemed me as high risk because of what I did, and they were just worried about my safety. And then after a few weeks I saw CAMHS for the first time, and yeah, I can't really remember really what happened in the sessions really, but because it all seems such a blur. Like, I know it happened 4 or 5 years ago, but it just all seems such a blur. I was seeing the mental health nurse, and then yeah, she was just doing like the general checks on like how you are and stuff. But back then I don't think I was deemed as like high risk, if that makes sense, because like my self-harm wasn't as bad still, and it just wasn't continuous, if that makes sense, or consistent. But yeah, so I was only with CAMHS for like a few months or like half a year, because I then self-discharged myself from them because I felt like they weren't really helping me. But then I got the job at Morrison's, and if I'm being completely honest, my job at Morrison's actually saved me, because that honestly helped me so much, and it gave me such a confidence boost. And yeah, that honestly really helped me with like everything which was going on, and it just, yeah, my job basically helped me. So for the first few years of me working, I was actually okay with my mental health, and yeah, things were actually looking up. But things started to get worse in 2017, and obviously like my thoughts were like going, like my mood fluctuates from like highs to low rapidly, and yeah, just my mood fluctuates so much during a day. And I used to always overthink things, and I remember in 2017 I started seeing things, and I got really confused because I was driving one day with my old best friend, and I said to her, I was like, I can see someone crossing the road, and she was like, there's no one there. And I used to just see things, and obviously back then it's like hallucinations, or it's a bit of like psychosis. And then I went to the doctors and I told them what was going on, and then they referred me to the mental health team, like the community mental health team. And I had an assessment, I told them how I was feeling, and if I'm being honest, because I wasn't deemed as high risk back then, like nothing really happened. I didn't really need to see anybody because they didn't really think I was that bad or whatever. But then at the end of 2017, things started to get worse, and that was with my eating. Like, I always used to struggle with like my self-confidence, my self-esteem, like body image, and like I used to think I was really fat, even though I wasn't fat. And so I used to, so in the end of 2017 I started starving myself and not eating much, and obviously that resulted in me losing more and more weight. And one day at work, my manager was really worried about me, so she made me book a doctor's appointment. Sorry, I'm just fiddling with my tangle because I'm quite anxious about filming this video. And so she made me book a doctor's appointment for that day. So I then saw the doctor that day, and she referred me to the eating disorder team because she said my BMI was really low. And obviously I was on the waiting list for the eating disorder team, and yeah, that was quite a while. That was quite a wait even. And I have done like my anorexia story, so I'm not going to go into too much detail of what happened with my eating because I've already done my anorexia story, and it's one of my first videos, so it's quite a while up on my channel. And so I was on the waiting list to see the eating disorder teams, and obviously I was still losing weight and nothing was getting done, so my parents had to chase up the doctors and to see where my referral was on the list, because obviously I was losing more and more weight and nothing was getting done with like my eating, and obviously things were deteriorating. And so I went back to the GP, and I used to see a certain GP all the time, and she's now left my surgery, but that was the first time I saw her, and obviously like she started to chase up the clinic and stuff, the eating disorder team, because obviously I was losing more and more weight. And then in early 2018 I started seeing the eating disorder teams, and like I was having one-to-one sessions with them, but because my mental health was getting worse and worse, they said that because my needs were more complex for them, I had to get referred to the mental health team, so the community mental health team, because like although my eating was really bad, my other mental health problems were like getting worse and worse. Like I was starting to self-harm again, but it was getting worse and worse, and it was getting and my self-harm was more continuous this time, and I made a few more attempts to end my life, which resulted in me going to hospital, and the eating disorder team said that I was more high risk for them, so I had to go to the community mental health team. So that was when I got discharged from the eating disorder teams, and that's when I started seeing the community mental health team, and I started seeing a community psychiatric nurse, and I saw a psychiatrist, and they started me on medication. And the medication they started me on was fluoxetine, which is an antidepressant, and quetiapine, which is an antipsychotic. And I was on the quetiapine for a few weeks, but I didn't get along with that medication because it made me feel so drowsy. So then they took me off quetiapine and they started me on mirtazapine. So then for about a year I was on mirtazapine and fluoxetine. And they put me on mirtazapine because it helps with your sleep, and it's an antidepressant, and it helps gain weight, because obviously by the time I was referred to the community mental health team I was still very underweight. And with the mirtazapine, it really helped with my appetite. Like my eating disorder thoughts were still there, but I think because my other mental health issues were getting worse, I wasn't really fixated on the eating as such, because obviously I was still self-harming on a regular basis, and yeah, I was just very dissociated, if that makes sense. And so after a while I was still seeing my CPN, which is a community psychiatric nurse, weekly, and she was just asking how I was basically, and just doing like general checks. And then she put me on the waiting list to see a psychologist, and I didn't start seeing the psychologist until the end of September last year. And I started seeing him. I saw him for about 6 weeks, but because I struggled talking to males, like I just couldn't really open up to people. And I did say to professionals that I do prefer talking to females, because I can't always talk to males, and everyone has their own preference and that should be listened to. So I did already address that to the professionals, but then after I stopped seeing the psychologist, I then felt like the CMHT weren't helping me, and then I discharged myself. Well, I asked to be discharged, and obviously within the time that I was seeing my CPN, and then when I got discharged, I kept ending up in hospital, because obviously I was attempting to take my own life, and it was just continuous. Like my self-harm was getting worse, and yeah, even though my self-harm and my attempts were getting worse, I still felt like the community mental health team weren't helping me, so I self-discharged myself. And then like earlier on this year I got the letter in January saying that I got discharged from the community mental health team. And then actually in January this year I went back to work, because last year from March until early this year I was off sick from work for 10 months because of my mental health, because I got medically suspended, because obviously my eating was really bad, and yeah, they just medically suspended me because I was really bad. But then I went back to work early this year in January, and I was back to work from January until March. And the first few weeks when I was back at work I was feeling okay, like I wasn't too bad actually, but then things were starting to go downhill again. Like my self-harm was getting worse and worse, and yeah, just things were just getting a bit out of control basically. And then in April, like I by the way guys, from the end of 2017 up until May this year, I was seeing my GP like every month, and sometimes it used to be weekly because she used to help me so much and I was massively attached to her, and she was just an absolutely amazing person to me. Like, she helped me and my mental health so much, and I give her so much credit for what she's done for me because she's just such an amazing person. And now that I don't have her in my life, I really am struggling, if I'm being completely honest. So then I saw my GP in March sometime, and then she told me in my appointment with her that she's leaving the surgery in August. And that's when I started to lose control, because obviously, like, I was massively attached to her, and the thought of her leaving me was just, it was just horrible. Like, I just couldn't deal with it. And that was when I started to spiral downhill, because my self-harm was getting worse and worse. I had to go to minor injuries and I had to get stitches for my self-harm. And that was the first time I've ever had to get stitches for my self-harm. And obviously I was continuously going to minor injuries for my self-harm because it was getting worse and worse. And then early May this year, I went back to see my GP, and she was very concerned about me and my mental health. And obviously I wasn't with the mental health teams anymore, so she referred me to the crisis team. And the crisis team saw me and they came round that day, and then they said about if I should go into a hospital, like a general hospital basically, where like you can just walk in and out. But my parents didn't like the idea of that, because even though I'll be in a hospital, I'll easily be able to walk in and out, and that's not really going to keep me safe. And so the crisis team suggested that should they see if sorry, it's really hard for me to say because it's just, oh, they so the crisis team basically said that so if I don't want to go to a general hospital, should they see about if I need to be sectioned. So the next day the crisis team came round, and 2 doctors came round, a mental health social worker, and I cannot remember who else came round. It's all such a blur. It's honestly such a blur. And long story short, they decided to section me onto a section 2, and a section 2 is up to 28 days. And that night I was taken to a psychiatric hospital, and it was the first time that I was inpatient. And I tell you now, it was very surreal, because obviously it all happened just so quick. Like, from seeing my GP like the day before or a couple of days before, and her referring me to the crisis team, and then a few days later I'm in a psychiatric hospital and I'm sectioned, and it's just quite surreal. And it was just horrible to see like my family's reaction basically. Yeah, it was just very horrible to see my family's reaction, because obviously like they were devastated to see their daughter getting locked away somewhere. And I was only in hospital for 5 days because I said to the doctor that it's not helping me being in here, and it was just making me worse. And they actually listened to me, even though I was still having incidents in hospital. Like, I was still self-harming on a regular basis, and I was just not doing great in hospital. Like, they did listen to me, and because I lived at home with my parents and my family, they said it was fine for me to go home, because obviously I was seeing my GP still, and I would be under my GP's care and the community mental health team. But then after I got discharged from the hospital, I saw my GP like that week, and she basically said that I'm not allowed to see her anymore because something happened. I'm not going to go into detail with what happened, because that's just my personal information, and I just don't want to go into that because it gets me upset every time. But something happened which resulted in me not being able to see her anymore, and that honestly affected me so much because I literally just wanted to see her again. And the reason why I wanted to get out of hospital was because I wanted to see my GP again, because she was a massive help to me. And to get out of hospital to then be told that I'm not allowed to see my GP anymore, that really did affect me a lot. And then after I got discharged from hospital, I then had to go to day therapy, which was like a day therapy program which was for 2 weeks every day. So I went to that every single day, and they just taught me like stuff to do with like mindfulness and just how to like distract yourself, like when you have like negative thoughts and when you have urges to like self-harm and stuff like that, really. And if I'm being honest, those 2 weeks, they were actually really good. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed myself because I was with other people, and and I think it's nice because when you're with other people who've got similar issues to you, like, you can all relate to each other and you can all like be there for one another, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then after I went to day therapy, I went to the community mental health team, and I started seeing a new psychiatric nurse, but I only saw her about 3 times. She never really saw me, and yeah, nothing really came from that because she never really used to see me much. And then she said that she was going to refer me to Mind, and Mind is a charity basically, and so I went to Mind, and basically Mind said to me that I'm too complex for their care, so I needed to be with like the mental health team, like the community mental health team, but the community mental health team don't want to have me. So it's just all very confusing, and this has only happened recently, so that's why I remember it so well. And obviously the mental health teams didn't want to take me on, and because the community mental health team really wanted me to go with Mind, the community mental health team then discharged me, even though Mind said that I was too complex for their care. And then this happened in about July, August time, and like my self-harm was still getting worse and worse, and yeah, my thoughts were just all over the place. But to be fair, like, I didn't actually attempt to take my own life. I haven't done that for like a while actually, and that's probably a positive, but it's not because of the way I'm feeling, because I'm bottling everything up. And then in September I got referred back to the crisis team because my thoughts were getting out of control. Like, an ambulance got called for me because like I was just getting very, very bad with my mental health, and I was still self-harming. And so I got referred back to the crisis team, and they basically want me to go with the community mental health team again because they feel I needed to do DBT, which is dialectical behaviour therapy. But the community mental health team said that they don't want me to do DBT or emotional coping skills group because of my attachment issues, which is a bit shit because I know loads of people who've got attachment issues and they get to do DBT and stuff like that. But because of my attachment to my GP, they're just worried that it's going to happen again because they can see how badly my relationship with my old GP has affected me. So I'm not able to do DBT, but the crisis team really want me to go back to the community mental health team to do that. And then at the end of September, I then went on a holiday with my family, and I got started on a new medication, and that was venlafaxine, and they took me off fluoxetine. So from September onwards, I was on venlafaxine, mirtazapine and aripiprazole, and the venlafaxine is an antidepressant. And then we move on to October. So I came back off holiday, and this is all fairly recent, so it was only like last month, so this is how I remember it all so well. And I still hadn't heard anything from the mental health teams. I got referred, well, the crisis team referred me back to the community mental health team, and the last time I actually saw a proper professional was like a few months ago. Yeah, so I was still waiting to hear back from the mental health teams, but I was hearing absolutely nothing from them. and I just felt so let down by services because literally I haven't had any proper help at all this year at all, and it just makes me so upset because I've literally been involved with the crisis team about, oh my god, about 4 or 5 times this year already, and it's just crazy. Well, probably not that much, probably like 3 or 4 times. And different mental health teams are saying different things. So one mental health team thinks I should do this and another mental health team thinks I should do something different. So it's just confusing because I keep getting told different things from different people and it's very frustrating. But yeah, that's basically it with that. And then we move on to now. And obviously my mental health still isn't great, if I'm being completely honest. Yesterday was the first time I went to an appointment in weeks, and the last time I saw a professional was in September because that was when I was with crisis team, and yesterday I booked a doctor's appointment to see my GP because this was a different GP. And so I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and I basically said to the doctor that I've basically had no support from the mental health teams at all, and the last time I had help was, well, not help, but the last time I saw a professional was in September when I was with crisis team, but I haven't actually heard from the mental health team in months, and they basically had a professionals meeting. Well, the GP said that they had a professionals meeting a few weeks ago about me to see what they were going to do with me, and the GP said that they basically want to help me, but they don't really know how to help me because they're just worried about my attachment issues and stuff like that, which, it's like, oh god, okay. But yeah, that's literally where I'm at. Like, my mental health still isn't great. Like, I'm still, like I said to the GP yesterday, like, my thoughts are still very low. Like, I'm in such a dark place, I feel still. But the last few months though, like, I have been talking to this lad who is now my boyfriend, and I feel like the reason why, like, I haven't done anything silly for the last 4 months, I would say, since I haven't had any proper support, or I haven't, like, been with, like, the mental health teams, is because I've been with him and I've been talking to him. Because, like, I first started talking to my boyfriend 4 months ago, and that was when I got discharged from the community mental health team. And yeah, so that's probably why I haven't done anything, because obviously he's kept me going and he's keeping me distracted as much as possible, which is a good thing. Yeah, next week I've actually got a psychologist from the community mental health team coming around mine to discuss what's going to happen with me, because I don't know what's happening with me. So hopefully I'm going to get some proper answers, because the GP yesterday did refer me back to the community mental health team because he feels like I need to have continuous support, basically, like one-to-one continuous support. But it's just not, I just don't see it happening. Like, I keep getting referred to people and nothing just gets done, and it's just, I'm just so tired of it. Like, it's the same old thing every time. But yeah, that's literally where I'm at. That's literally where I'm at now. So mental health isn't great still. Like, I'm just trying to do things, like, I'm just trying to help myself, basically, because no one else is helping me. And that's why I'm just trying to plan things with my boyfriend, to do things to keep myself distracted and to make sure I've got things to look forward to. But it's just so difficult when you've got no support system. And normally, if I didn't have the mental health teams, I wouldn't be that fast because I would have my old GP. But because my GP's left the surgery now, I haven't got her, and that's really, really hard for me because she was such a good support for me. But yeah, that's literally where I'm at, guys. So, like, the medications that I'm still on is venlafaxine, mirtazapine and aripiprazole. And yeah, that's literally everything, I believe. I don't think I have missed anything, but I probably have, but I'm always going to miss, like, everyone's going to miss some things because you can't include everything. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's going to be quite a bit longer than my other video because I think my other mental health story was 19 minutes, so this one's probably going to be like half an hour or something like that. But hopefully I've included more in it this time and I haven't rushed it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!